You can put it on me. Carissa and Leanne and Robin, thank you so much for being here today. You guys can start letting them in at your pleasure. Leanne, we good?
Yep, they're all in.
Yep, keep coming. Okay, guys, thanks for joining us today. Come on in and drop in the chat window where you are watching from today, and we'll get started in about 1 minute.
Hello, Miss Simmons' class and Miss Turner's class is here. I think I recognize some names from Uplift, Michigan with us. Miss Kirkland's class in Berwick, Pennsylvania. Hello. Indiana's in the house, and it is 70 degrees and raining in Indiana today. We have, let's see, Hilliard, Ohio's in the house. Birch Meadow Elementary is here. Johnson City, Tennessee. Oh, I need to give a big shout out from them. That is my hometown. So hello, Miss Turner's class. Atlanta, Georgia coming in at 73 degrees. Must be beautiful down there in Miss Brown's neck of the woods.
Well, hey everyone, this is Dr. Drizzle. We want to welcome you to our 6th live stream this school year. And today we are in Rocky Mountain National Park. And no, this is not a green screen. This is actual beauty coming to you from Rocky Mountain National Park, specifically Sprague Lake, where the temperature is around 41 degrees. And yes, that is snow up on the mountain. We're excited to bring to you a really fun hour. We want to thank so much the National Park Foundation for sponsoring our work this school year. This is our 4th year with the National Park Foundation, season 4, and we're very excited about bringing you the beauty of the national parks. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me give you a few housekeeping rules. We would love for you to keep your microphones on mute. You are welcome to keep your screens on so that people can see you. We're going to have moments during our live stream today where you can ask questions, and we want you to figure out some ways that you might even be able to stump the rangers. Now, we are located in Rocky Mountain National Park in the state of Colorado. So if you're looking at the map right now and you have your journals, go ahead and fill in that we are in Rocky Mountain National Park above Denver, about an hour and a half from Denver. And we are specifically located, like I said before, at Sprague Lake. Now, speaking of stumping the Rangers, let's go ahead and introduce you to our amazing Rangers today. So we have Ranger Kelly and we have Ranger Sarah. So if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been here, and then we'll pass it over to Sarah, and then we'll get started.
Sure. So my name is Kelly Cook, and I'm a park ranger here at Rocky Mountain National Park. I work here just in the summer times, and this is my 3rd summer here at the park.
Now, where are you originally from, Kelly?
So I was born in St. Louis, and I've spent a lot of time in the Missouri Ozarks doing environmental education as well.
Nice. And what about you, Sarah? Because I believe you've been here just a few days.
Yeah, I actually started last week for an accessibility internship to finish up my occupational therapy program.
Well, we are so excited to have you here. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, so we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, Kelly, can you tell us about the unique wildlife that lives here at these high elevations? I'm excited to learn about this.
Yeah, so right now we're at Sprague Lake and we're just shy of 9,000 feet. However, there's some really cool animals that live up in the tippy tops of the mountains. When you look behind us and you see all the snow up there, we call that the alpine. And the alpine means land above the trees. So even though it's covered in a ton of snow right now, there's actually animals alive under the snow right now. Some of those animals would look a little bit like this. So up there, we have these marmots, and in the summer, they hang out on the rocks and they like to sunbathe, and they look like these lazy guys because maybe they are a little bit. Most of their lives, they will actually be hibernating underneath the snow. So in the fall, they fatten up and make sure they have all the fat stores they need so that right now, while their food is buried in snow, they can just sleep the day away. However, I'll let you hold on to him. However, one of my favorite animals and a crowd favorite is the pika. So pikas kind of look like an overgrown hamster, but they're actually more closely related to rabbits. And these guys aren't sleeping right now. Right now, at this very moment, there are these little pikas that are running around in tunnels underneath the snow. The snow acts like a blanket and can actually help to keep them a little bit warmer. And you can see this one has a little bit of food in his mouth because these guys are always out gathering food. All summer, he gathered little piles of food. We call them their hay bales. So then all winter, they have these different hay bales to go and eat. So they eat and they stay awake all winter long.
So I'm hoping that you've got your journals and pencils out because you might want to sketch this little guy and label it Marmot. And then this little guy named Pika, and he has the best little voice. I think it's MEEP. They say beep, beep, beep. So if your teachers are okay with it, can we have just a little chorus of meep, meep, meeps in the classroom? Meep, 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 meep. Love that. What else do you have for us?
So these are some of my two favorite animals that live up in the alpine. And then a little while later, we're going to talk about some animals that live in other ecosystems as well.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of elevation and there's a lot of elevation on these ecosystems. So how do they change as we move higher up? And what adaptations do these little guys and plants need to have?
Yeah, certainly. I've got a chart here that helps us out. And if you're someone who likes to journal, you might start by drawing a big old triangle because the ecosystems here at Rocky Mountain National Park can be defined by what elevation they are at. So to begin, the very bottom part of our triangle is the lowest elevations in the park. We call this the montane ecosystem. And we aren't in the montane today, so we actually have a picture of what the montane might look like. If you're in lower elevations in the park below 9,000 feet, you're going to see these grassy areas with these great big ponderosa pine trees. This is going to be the warmest area in the park, and it can tend to get a little bit dry. So can I have you hold on to this one for me? Thanks. So let's talk about those ponderosa pine trees. Thank you. Ponderosa pines have some special adaptations. Since the montane can be kind of hot and dry, these guys are most likely to see fire. So one adaptation that they have in order to protect them from the fire is they have super thick bark. This is the bark of a ponderosa pine tree, and you can see it's a great big piece. So when fire goes through those grasslands, the fire might scar this bark on the outside, but it's protecting, that thick bark protects all the plumbing that's on the inside of this tree and all the living tissue. So that thick bark is really helpful. And just as comparison, I also have a lodgepole pine, which doesn't live that low. And you can see this one here has a lot thinner bark compared to our ponderosa pine tree. So that's a really great adaptation for the montane ecosystem. Other than the trees, since there's so much grasses down in the montane, that is where you're going to find most of our elk at this point in time. So what we have today, we love bringing out our antlers. And so our elk have a really great adaptation. So right now they're in the montane ecosystem because that's where they can find food. The snow's melted out, there's some grasses growing in. So our elk that might have these big antlers up on their head can hang out in the montane. Their adaptation isn't something you necessarily see, like we see their antlers, but they have a behavior. They move up in elevation as more food becomes available. So right now it's early, there's snow up high in the mountains, so they don't want to be up there. They want to be down here where they can find food.
Now, I noticed that there are a lot of elk out right now. In fact, they love to cross the road here. But I've heard that the moms have just had their babies. Talk about that.
Yeah, so we're coming into our calving season. So a baby elk is called a calf, and their moms are called cows. So when those moms have their little baby calves, they're pretty protective over them. So this is a really good time of year to make sure we're giving, especially the moms, lots of space. If we were to see them on a trail, it might be a good idea to stop or go way around. So we want to give those mama elk lots of room because they're super busy with their baby calves.
Now, I'm assuming that here at the Rocky Mountain, you also use that rule of thumb that you want to, if you put your hand out, and if the animal is completely behind your thumb, you're in a safe place. Maybe even back up a little bit more, right? But it's important because these are pretty dangerous and these are big animals, right? So we want to make sure we're staying safe here. I noticed this particular season, they look a little mangy.
They do.
What's happening there? Because in the summer, their coats are more pretty. Sorry, elk, I'm not shaming you, but they look a little different.
Yeah, when it comes to the fashion show of elks, the spring season has this like sort of fringy, scruffy look. So what's happening is they're starting to lose their winter fur, the really thick stuff that they needed in order to keep them warm this winter. They're starting to lose that and to get their sleeker, slimmer spring coats and summer coats. They don't need as much insulation, so they have a whole new round of fur to go along with it.
I love it. Thanks for sharing about the elk.
Of course. Thank you.
We have mountains back here.
We do.
And were there any other adaptations you wanted to share with us? I forgot about the snowshoe.
Yes. So we're talking about the 3 different ecosystems here at Rocky Mountain National Park. So that was the montane where we have our elk and our big ponderosa pine trees. As you go up in elevation, usually above 9,000 feet, we get into the subalpine. Here at Sprague Lake, you could say that we're almost into that subalpine. The subalpine has lots of trees and they grow very close together. Remember the montane, they were all spread out.
Right.
So subalpine, they're very close together and it's really well shaded. And one of the critters that likes to live in the shaded subalpine is our snowshoe hare. Snowshoe hares get their name because they have a great big foot. Their back foot is huge, and that is an adaptation to help them stay above the snow. So in the winter, you might see a snowshoe hare be stark white to blend in to the snow. This is going to be a great adaptation so that they can hide from predators. So they might have the stark white snow in the winter, but now that that snow is melting, just like the elk are getting on their spring coats, the snowshoe hare might be getting their spring coat as well. So in the summer, when it's a lot of dirt and rock that they're hopping along on top of, the white's not going to be very helpful. They need to camouflage with rocks and dirt. So this is going to be their summer coat, a lot better for when there's no snow on the ground.
I love that adaptation and I love that they can completely change. I think that would be fun for some of us to have our hair one color in a season and another color without having to go someplace and have someone do that for us.
Right.
It looks like we have a question, Leanne.
All right. A couple of questions. One was, do they really smell like butterscotch?
Very good. So I think the question was, do they really smell like butterscotch? And I think what we're getting at here is that the ponderosa pine trees do have a smell to them. So if you ever get to go into the montane ecosystem here at Rocky Mountain National Park, you might be able to get up to a ponderosa pine. If you give it a big hug, you might have a sweet smell. And some people describe it as butterscotch. Some people say vanilla. But yes, the ponderosa pine trees do have a really sweet smell to them that some would call butterscotch.
Here's a tip for you though. If you are going to smell those trees, be careful to not sniff up a bug because those are very hard to get out. I may or may not have done that twice. So did we have another question?
Yes, how many types of species of marmot are there?
So here at Rocky Mountain National Park, we have one species. He is the yellow belly marmot, which kind of sounds like an old school insult to me.
Yes.
But they're very cool. They're very cute.
Yellow belly.
The yellow bellied marmot.
Excellent questions. Well, I'm going to, do we need that too?
Yes. So remember, 3 ecosystems, higher in elevation. The very last one is the tippy top of your triangle. If you were following along in your journal, the top of our triangle, the top of our mountains is the alpine. So all that snow up there in the mountains behind us, that is the alpine. That's the land above the trees. The alpine is amazing. It gets tons of snow. It is super windy, so it can be really hard to survive up there. You're not going to find big pine trees, and if you find any trees, they tend to grow sideways because they get blown over by the wind. One really awesome thing that is up in the alpine that people from all over the world come to see are the alpine wildflowers. So this is a picture of moss campion. And these plants grow super close together, and they're only about this tall. So they don't grow very tall because it's so windy. They have a very short growing season since they only get sunlight for a few months out of the year. So they tend to grow very close together in order to find shelter. There's safety in numbers, right? So these are called cushion plants because they grow so close together. It's like a little pad or a little cushion.
Now, I learned a fun fact this week that's kind of sad. Pikas have to have a certain body temperature to survive. And in fact, they can't get above 69 degrees, or they just have a little while to survive until they can get cooler again. So that's pretty interesting, right? And we know that there's been some researchers that are working with pika, and they have to be very careful that when they're working with them, they have to immediately get them back to their little home so they can collect that grass and those little yellow flowers. So a very cool thing. Now, there's a mountain behind us.
There is.
It was several peaks up here. It's made of something, right? This place is called the Rocky Mountain National Parks, which is part of the Rocky Mountains, the chain. So let's talk a little bit about these guys were formed millions of years ago, which in rock years isn't very long ago, but can you tell us a little overview of the geological history, and maybe we can do a little movement with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rocky Mountain National Park, the Rocky Mountains, when we think of how mountains are formed, there's a few different ways. Some special mountains are made by volcanoes. Some are made when tectonic plates are shifting around, push into each other, go underneath each other. The mountains here were caused by what we call subduction. So let's have 2 tectonic plates out in front of us here. So we've got these 2 tectonic plates, and there was one smaller plate that started slipping underneath the North American plate. So I'm just making my fingers go right underneath that bigger plate there. Now, normally when this plate subducts or goes underneath the first one, this lower part will start to melt as it goes down into the earth. But what's weird about our mountains is that plate didn't dive deep under and start to melt. It actually very narrowly skimmed just underneath that other plate. Think about when you make pancakes and you put your spatula underneath it before you flip it. So instead of diving underneath it, this one went right underneath, just like a spatula. Now, if that pancake batter isn't all the way cooked and it's not ready to flip yet, sometimes it makes wrinkles, right? So this plate came under here, made some wrinkles, forced the rocks up, and now we have the uplift of the Rocky Mountains. So it was tectonic plates that caused the rocks to come up. And we know that because we have some really special rocks here in the park. So this rock that I brought with me today is called gneiss. And I know that because it has all of these stripes here. So we like to say gneiss banding. So all of this banding was created by all the heat and pressure of that tectonic plate activity. So scientists know that tectonic plates help to cause the uplift of the Rocky Mountains because we find these metamorphic rocks. These were metamorphized by all that heat and pressure of the tectonic activity. Now, the rocks were uplifted by tectonic plates, but all the beautiful gorges and valleys and different places that are so fun to explore were carved by glaciers. So these giant icy bulldozers just helped to shape the landscape after those rocks had been uplifted.
I noticed that it has some sparkles
Yes.
in there. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so just some of the minerals, and when they were caused by that heat and that pressure, sometimes they organize in a certain way that they are super shiny. So there's two metamorphic rocks that we have here. We have gneiss with gneiss banding, and we have shiny schist. But we're lucky in both of them sometimes get these really awesome sparkles that are in there.
It looks like we have a question.
We are getting tons of questions.
That's
So,
awesome.
are there any snakes in the Rocky Mountains?
I wish there were more snakes in the
Ooh.
Rocky Mountains. I really like snakes. I'm from Missouri and we have lots of snakes there, so I kind of miss them. But I am happy to say that we do have one species of snake that hangs out here at Rocky Mountain National Park, and it's a type of garter snake. They like to hang out near water, and in the fall, I get to see a lot of them near some of our lakes that are in low elevations. The snakes don't like it up high. It just gets too cold.
It does. And if they were here, they'd be very slow.
They would
right?
be,
Because
yeah.
they need that warm temperature. But I am okay with them not being here. There are other places that we visit that have snakes, so I'm okay with that. All right, we'll come back to another question in just a moment. Are we ready to move to the next question?
Yeah, we hit our three main ecosystems that are defined by the different elevations in the mountains. So we have those three. The only other one would be the riparian ecosystem, and riparian means water. So today here at Sprague Lake, we are at a riparian ecosystem, and they can happen at any elevation.
Nice. Well, let's talk a little bit about the indigenous communities, people that lived here.
Yeah.
Their place first. Let's talk about that.
Sure. So there are several tribal communities that have special connections to the landscape that now encompasses Rocky Mountain National Park. We know that Native people traveled here to hunt, gather, and live. And each Native group has a special connection to this place that is unique and sacred. And those aren't necessarily the park's story to tell. We know that Indigenous people curated the landscape and made connections with the different living beings that are here. And today, our different park rangers work with these tribal communities to make sure that cultural and natural resources remain accessible and make sure that we're managing those things together. If you're someone who wants to learn more about Indigenous people and their connection to Rocky Mountain National Park, I direct you to look for books that are written by Indigenous people, consume Indigenous media, and you can respectfully attend different public events like public powwows and feast days.
Nice. I love that. And I love that you talk about the story's not ours to tell. So we need to listen to what they're telling us.
Very good.
Beautiful storytelling. I love that we're just switching back and forth between the animals and then the people and the rocks. So let's go back to the wildlife for just a moment. There's some things that you're doing here to conserve the wildlife. In fact, we know that it's a home to so many things from elk to black bears. So what conservation efforts are happening here to protect this?
Sure. Let's pick one animal, for example.
Let's do the bear.
Let's start with bears. Yeah, so I brought a bear pelt with us today. Thank you, Sarah. So our black bears, we hear a lot about bears at many different parks. But here at Rocky, it's actually a super special and unique thing to get to see a black bear in our park. So in Rocky, they've done some scientific studies and they have found that there's only about 20 or 24 black bears in the park. And people are really surprised to hear that. But 1/3 of our park is the alpine tundra, and it's not a bear's favorite habitat. There's just not enough food and shelter that they like to have. So since so much of our park is alpine, it's not great habitat for them. So we actually have a fairly low population of bears here at Rocky Mountain National Park.
But we love our bears.
We do.
And it's so much that I'm going to have to give this one a kiss. If I were going to name this guy, oh, he's a little smushed in. If I were going to name this guy, I think I would name him Dave.
Dave.
He looks like a Dave to me. So I'm going to give him a little pucker. Okay, that was fun. Right. So obviously this is a pelt. This is not the real thing.
Yes.
And from what I understand, they're just coming out of a long sleep. Is that true?
That's very true. So just like that marmot up in the Alpine, our bears will also do a bit of hibernating as well.
So they're coming out right now pretty hungry.
Yeah, if I was asleep for months and months, I'd wake up pretty hungry.
Well, I think we have something else we can show them about the bears.
Mhm.
Not yet.
All right, so we're talking about our black bears, and I love being able to show the skull of a black bear to help us understand a bit more about them. Bears are super smart, and they've got excellent noses. So the front of the skull here, this is his great big nasal cavity. Bears have a nose that is 100 times more sensitive to ours. They can find food up to 5 miles away using the power of this nose. And so we also can learn a lot about an animal and learn about what it likes to eat when we look at its teeth. So here on this bear, I see some teeth in the back that are kind of flat, maybe a little bumpy. And in the front, we've got some that might look like your teeth are kind of flat in the front, good for biting. But then we also still have these big pointy ones here. So when I see big flat teeth, I'm thinking of eating plants. And when I'm seeing this big sharp teeth in the front, I'm thinking about eating meat. And bears, like you and I, are omnivores. So they eat lots of different stuff. So they use those noses to find it, and they've got these teeth to eat all sorts of different stuff. Now, they like to eat the same stuff as us, and they've got a really great nose. And sometimes that nose can get them into a little bit of trouble. So something we have to do as park managers and as park visitors is to make sure that our food and our trash is not left in places that a bear could get to it. They're very smart. They've got a great memory. If they know that there is some easy food to find in, say, a garbage can, they're going to come back to that area to find it. And sometimes that ease of finding that food will override their natural instincts to go find food out in the mountains and out in the woods. So it's our responsibility to make sure we keep our food away from them so they don't learn any bad habits. So if you're a camper here at Rocky Mountain National Park, we've got really big food storage lockers that you can put your coolers in and your food boxes. We're never leaving our cereal out on the table while we go out hiking. We need to make sure we protect our bears by keeping our food away from them. However, I really like to go backpacking, and I can't bring a huge heavy locker with me to protect my food. So there's a tool we use when we're hiking in the backcountry to make sure that our food is safe for me, because I'm going to be hungry out there hiking, but also to make sure that our critters don't get to it. Can I pass this to you, Sarah? Thank you. So this is a bear can, we call it a lot of the times, but this is something that helps us keep our food safe. Now it looks like a big giant jar. That's essentially what it is. But there's a special mechanism on it that makes it really hard to open. So the top is a screw top, and you can hear that click. I'm running into trouble. There's a little something there to make sure that if I don't have super strong thumbs, like a lot of humans tend to, if I don't have a way to push that in, to rotate it, I'm not going to be able to open it. So there's a trick of pushing in real hard. It's especially hard when it's cold, but they're nice and warm. So we can open this up and be able to get my food. And then when I leave and I want to go explore, or maybe when I want to go to sleep, I put everything that's smelly in here. That means my food. That might mean cooking utensils, but it also means things like toothpaste.
Toothpaste. I was thinking
And
of that. Deodorant.
vitamins, deodorant, anything that's sort of smelly. If you can smell it, a bear sure as heck can smell it. So we put it in here to make sure they don't get into, they get into it.
Well, I want to just review just a second. We talked about the bears being omnivores. So they like meats and they like vegetables. So let's talk about the other two types of eaters. We have carnivores, which are just going to get food. So that's what my husband likes. He likes meat, that carnivore stuff. When we get the pizzas, he goes for the carnivore pizza. Then we have some people that is a human are vegetarians, but we call that herbivores, right?
Yeah.
So the bear likes both. So if you're leaving gummy bears and marshmallows and things out, that's what they're going to eat. Not good for them.
Nope.
It's not going to be healthy for them. But if it's right there, it's easier. So we have a really important job to help take care. It's not just your responsibility. We have to do that also. Looks like we have a question.
Oh, we have tons of questions. So,
Good.
we won one under the category of Stump the Ranger. Do any of the pica ever steal from their neighbors' haystacks?
This is a really good question. The question was, do pikas ever steal from their neighbors? Not only do pica have to worry about other pikas taking their food, they have to worry about other animals as well. Sometimes under the snow, there are mice and different things that are also under there, and they're hungry as well. So they're going to take advantage of the things that they find. So yes, unfortunately, those pikas have to be careful where they hide their hay bales because other critters will want to eat it as well.
You know, that reminds me of the Pica Protect Your Food dance that was just created not long ago. So we're actually going to do that. And then, Miss Simran, we're going to come back for another question. But this Pica Preserve Your Food or Protect Your Food, well, it was born just a few years ago.
Right.
We were up at the top of Alpine at 12,000 feet, and we saw some picas, and then we saw a few greedy ones coming over. So what I want you to do is, if you have permission from your teachers, to go ahead and stand up, okay? And I want you to get your little hands ready like this because they have little hands. And you are going to get your food, grab, grab, munch, munch, grab, grab, munch, munch. And then you see that greedy little neighbor or that other animal that's coming towards you. So instead of grab, grab, munch, munch, we're going to do grab, grab, punch, punch. Okay, so ready? We're going to do it together. And we're going to start first with 2 sessions of the munch and then 2 sessions of the punch.
Got it.
So are you ready? Hands up. Grab, grab, munch, munch, grab, grab. Here they come. Grab, grab, punch, punch, grab, grab, punch, punch. Now, there's a disclaimer for this dance. You are not allowed to do this. So when you have your lunch tomorrow with all of your friends, you may munch, but you may not steal someone else's, and you may not punch. That is only for the picas, because from what I understand, they used to stay underground a lot less, but now they're staying underground a little longer because of the temperatures. So one last time, students, make sure your teachers are doing this too. Ready? Grab, grab, munch, munch, grab, grab, munch, munch, grab, grab, punch, punch, grab, grab, punch, punch. Okay, that makes me feel much better that we went ahead and shared that. The Pica Protect Your Food dance. Very good. All right. It looks like we have another question, Miss Zimmerman.
We do. Miss Trowbridge's class has been studying Mount Everest, and they know there are Himalayan picas. Are those related to the ones in Rocky Mountain?
I would think that if they also named them a pica, they must be some sort of distant relative. I know more about the pica here at Rocky Mountain National Park than I do in the Himalayas.
So I'm going to let that one be a little bit of a stump the ranger. So your job, kids, is to find out what the relationship, possibly not brother, sister, but maybe first or second cousin. So do a little work with that. But we have, congratulations, a round of applause. You have stumped the ranger. Ranger Kelly, we love you, but we got a little stumpy there.
It's all good. I got things to learn out there too.
Right. All right. Well, we're going to switch it up a little bit and go a little further. I want to talk a little bit about something called climate change, especially here in the Rockies. So we know temperatures are rising. So how does climate change affect this park's ecosystems? And is there anything we're doing to mitigate that impact?
Yeah, certainly. So here at Rocky Mountain National Park, we have ecosystems that have evolved to have fire a part of them. However, with global climate change and increase of temperatures, the decrease of the amount of snowpack that sticks around in the summer months, we are seeing an increase in fire activity in the subalpine ecosystems. And we're very lucky that here at Rocky, we have an amazing fire crew. And their goals are to protect humans, protect our communities around the park, and to protect the resources that are here in the park, whether they're cultural or natural resources. And there's 2 main ways that they do this. if there was a wildfire, they go out and they directly fight it. That's one, right? But the other one is proactive fuels management. What the heck does that mean? So when we think of fuels, think about when you start a fire, put sticks on it, you put logs on it. That's the fuel. That's what the fire is burning. So what fuels are out there naturally? Our trees, any fallen trees. So our fire crews will do proactive fuels management by getting rid of certain trees. They'll make the amount of trees that are out in an area less. They'll thin the trees, we call that. They can trim up lower branches of a tree. And what that does is keep fire that's going through grasses on the ground from going up the tree and then catching the crown on fire. And then if there's an area where we have a lot of dead trees or a lot of branches that are down on the ground, they'll actually put those in big piles. Now, I've got a picture of what this looks like. We might be able to show you guys. These fuels teams will pile up these branches and dead trees and logs, and they make these great big triangles, sort of cone structures. And then they wait for there to be a nice blanket of snow on the ground, and then they can set them on fire. And what that does is it reduces the amount of burnable material in the forest, which means if a wildfire does come through, the fire won't burn as hot because there is less fuel. The fire may not last as long because the only fuels that are there are just like light grasses and things like that.
You may have said this, but I noticed in the picture there was snow.
Mhm.
So you're doing this during a snow time,
Yep.
right? So that you're still protecting everything else. You're doing the burn, but you're making sure that it goes out
Right.
once that's done.
Yeah.
In the Everglades National Park, we talked about that with Ranger Yvette, and she called what they were doing prescribed burns. Is that sort of the same thing here with some of their work?
Similar.
Similar.
So when they make these burn piles, these slash piles, the fire is only in those clusters where they built them. Here at Rocky, we actually did have 2 prescribed burns happen this spring as well at the end of winter. And when I hear prescribed burn, I'm thinking more of a landscape wide. So this is going to be a huge area, maybe even thousands of acres that they let fire move through, as opposed to the slash piles are kind of like individual big bonfires.
Okay. I'm wondering if they get cold, do they do marshmallows while there or?
You know, at other parks, I have been a part of these slash pile burnings, and yes, we will bring hot dogs and very, very long sticks because those piles are incredibly hot. Yeah.
Well, you have rangers here, all different types of rangers, accessibility rangers, you have interpretive rangers, you have wildlife. So what type of environmental management is happening in this park? So how does the park balance environmental protection with providing access to visitors, especially in these alpine areas?
I love this question. This is always going to be a challenge, right? Land managers want to protect the natural resources that are there, but it's also our responsibility to make sure that we have places where people can come and visit and have a good time as well. So in the Alpine, many people come to see those amazing alpine wildflowers. And I showed you the one before. We'll get that back out here. These little cushion plants, this Mons campion, they grow very, very slowly. So they're kind of fragile. So this is a typical dinner plate size. And I've got a picture of the flowers on top. Deja, do you have a guess? And maybe our students can guess. How long do you think a little alpine flower like this moss campion, how long would it take it to grow to be this size? Any guesses?
A year.
A year? More than that.
What about you, Ranger Sarah?
Maybe 15 years.
Sarah guesses 15 years. More than that, it would take, in some cases, over 200 years
wow.
for this flower to grow to be this size. So these guys are hardy. They can withstand a lot of wind and cold temperatures. They grow very in very small parts of the year, so they don't grow very quickly, which means we need to protect these guys. And many people want to go see them because they're gorgeous and they're only around for a little bit of time. So how we help to protect them is to try and make it very clear on where we have a hiking trail, versus where there's alpine tundra where we can just observe the flowers. So the biggest threat to some of these flowers up there can be our feet and our wheels. It's really special that here at Rocky Mountain National Park, we have a paved trail that goes all the way up into the alpine. So even people that may not be able to hike miles and miles up into the mountains to see these alpine flowers, they actually get the opportunity to see it because there's a paved trail that gets you all the way up there. So if we're going to be visitors in the alpine, we need to watch where we put our feet and where we put our wheels. So we have fully hardened, which just means pavement, on areas that's appropriate to park our cars. And we even have some trails that are paved. That way it's very clear where it's safe to have our feet and where it may not be safe for the flowers to have our feet.
Well, in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about those trails and how we can find them accessible and how we can create more. But we do have a question. It looks like Miss Zimmerman and Miss Brown and Miss Schwanekamp are having tons of questions. So let's do two more right now.
All right, we have two questions that are sort of related. First of all, how many rangers are there in Rocky Mountain National Park, and how and when was your park formed?
So the question was, how many rangers are here at Rocky Mountain, and when was this park formed? And I'm excited that I know that answer, but I'll let you do it.
So Rocky Mountain became a national park in 1915. Today, here at Rocky Mountain National Park, we have a lot of full-time rangers, a smaller group of full-time rangers, but in the summer, we hire hundreds of rangers to come and make sure that we have folks that can help manage all the extra people that come and visit in the summer. So I know that when it comes to seasonal rangers, typically we can hire hundreds of extra rangers to come in and help with all the extra people. But I'll give you points for Stump the Ranger because I don't have an exact number.
Oh, another Stump the Ranger. I like that. Well, you mentioned trails earlier, and Ranger Sarah, we invited you here today because this is your specialty. This thought of nature is for everyone, no matter what your ability is. So I have a question for you. Can you share what the park is doing right now to improve accessibility for visitors with different physical abilities?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Well, we're really proud of everything that Rocky's done so far to make the park more accessible. And there's actually a few current projects that are going on right now to increase that accessibility. One of which is an accessibility guide that I'm actually helping to finish up. And the goal of this guide is to kind of put together all of the information on those trails, those campsites, and those picnic areas that are accessible so that those park users know exactly what to expect when coming to those trails. So that can include information on the steepest point of the trail, how wide a pathway might be, and things of that sort.
Well, keep going.
Oh, no, you're good. I was going to say another project that's currently going on is working on an audio tour of the park map for visually impaired park users, which is also very exciting.
Do we have things for people that have lost their sight? Is there some
Yeah.
Braille things happening
Yeah,
here?
absolutely. There's all sorts of fun tools to increase the adaptability of the park. Specifically, we do have Braille and also large print park guides as well that you can get at the visitor centers. So that's great and extra useful for all those park users.
And I love that you're here and that's your job or your mission for the next 13 weeks. Now, Ranger Sarah had pelts. She had a skull. She had a pica. Do you have any cool tools that you would use? Because, creating accessible trails in this rugged terrain has to be tough.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So what do you have?
Yeah, so as you can expect based on the surroundings here, things tend to get pretty rocky, hence the name. So when we're either looking to make a new trail or expand an existing trail and we're trying to make that accessible, one thing we tend to use is it's kind of like a fancy level. It helps us to know the steepness of a trail, both as we're going forwards and backwards, but also the side to side, because we really want that as flat as possible. Because if you're thinking about perhaps a wheelchair user, if it's really slanted, that's not going to be quite so easy to move forward. So making things level is really important. Additionally, when making trails, this is used to measure different areas of the trail. So this could be used to measure the entire trail so that people know how long it is, but also if there is a steeper section, we want to let individuals know exactly how long that steep section is so that they can prepare accordingly.
And you know, knowing that information helps people without mobility problems too to decide how far they want to go before they bring out their bear can and have a snack. You know, the national parks belong to all of us, which is really interesting, kids. You own a piece of the national parks too, but I love that Rocky's doing everything they can to make sure that it's accessible for all people, for all abilities. We know that nature heals us, right? And the
Absolutely.
more we can get out into it, the better. So I love that you're here today, and I love because we are giving our students a challenge. So students, here is our engineering design challenge. Rocky Mountain National Park is a wild place. It's beautiful. It has all the animals. It has the rocks, the water, the waterfalls. So we want you to consider how you can create an accessible trail in your own community. I know if you look around your community, you will see people that may use walkers or wheelchairs or canes. You may know of someone that has lost their sight or are hard of hearing or just sometimes get overwhelmed by all the things happening around us. So what kind of trails can you build that all people can use? So first of all, we want you to sketch out your trail, give it a name based on what is around it. Do we have any trails here that have particular names?
Yes. So we're on the Sprague Lake Trail right now.
Sprague Lake Trail, because it's on Sprague Lake. So think about where you're going to design this trail. And you might also want to go ahead and build a model of it, because I know that park rangers, park planners, they build out models first to make sure what it's going to look like. And then we want you to share your design with us. We're going to share it with the rangers, especially Ranger Sarah, so she can see your ideas, because we are beautifully and smart people, but we're old. And sometimes we don't have the best ideas. So I'm excited to see what you will build that may help out someone in your community and may help out someone here at the national park. So let's bring the screen back to us for just a few minutes. How exciting is this, that these future park rangers or engineers or designers could help out the national parks? It would make your job a little easier if you had some ideas, but it also would give them purpose, right? We know that they are the new stewards of these parks. Someday we're going to be too old to do this, and we need you guys to consider that. I want to know if there are any more questions from our students or our teachers. And if so, we're going to have a little Q&A time here with both of our rangers. So let's see if we have any more questions.
We certainly do. Several questions about the mountains themselves, like how many mountains are there? What's the tallest mountain? One question had to do with why is there snow up on the mountains but not near where you are?
Okay, so I want to say that this is part of the Rocky Mountain chain, right? So these are called peaks. Am I correct?
Sure.
So she's going to be able to name some of them, but she wants to leave the rest of them for you to do some research on. So let's talk about some of the peaks behind us.
Yeah, so right behind me here, the furthest over that away, you can see that one over that way. The top of it isn't so pointy. It's actually known as Flat Top Mountain. And then when we come towards the middle, there's one here that if you look closely, there's kind of like 3 individual spikes on it. And that one is called Hallett Peak. We actually have trails that go all the way up there. And it's a really excellent peak. You'll notice that there's snow up there. That is up in the Alpine. As we go higher in elevation in the mountains, the temperature gets colder. So down where we are, it's almost warm enough that I'd be able to take my coat off. But if I were to go up to the tippy top of that mountain, it's going to be significantly colder. And I definitely would want even more than just this coat to be up on top of Hallett Peak today. So elevation will change the temperature. And because it's colder, the higher you are in the mountains, the snow can stick around there even into some of the summer months, there will still be patches of snow up in the alpine, the area above the trees.
So we said the elevation here was about 8,700 feet. The further we go up, the higher it gets. I think at one point, do we reach 13,000 at one point? Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a difference of 5,000 feet. Yesterday, we were in Denver, which is a mile-high city. It was in the 60s, 65. It was nice. It was warm. We got here to Estes Park and it dropped 20 degrees.
Oh, yeah.
So that was just a few thousand more. Now, this road that goes all the way to the top right now, it's closed.
Correct.
Right? There is snowpack there. There are poles on the side, and there will be snow plows that go through and clean that off so that you can open it later. But those are great questions. What else do we have?
Are black bears endangered? How many pounds of food would they eat? And then going back to Dr. Drizzle's little kiss with the bear, did you find the bear like that or did you make it like that?
Oh, great question. Let me repeat the questions for people that are watching out here. I forgot what they were.
So are black bears endangered? And the answer to that would be no. Black bears do not need the special protections of the Endangered Species Act. We do have a population here that is good enough that they are not on the endangered species list. I believe there's also about how much food do they eat. Black bears need up to 20,000 calories a day before they go into hibernation. So this is that stage right before hibernation where they need to eat a lot of food to get their fat stores up. And we're talking 20,000 calories. That's like 10 times as many as recommended for a human.
For humans, right.
And they've got to work really hard to do that because they're using a lot of plants in order to get those calories. And then the other one was about your moment with the bear.
The moment with the bear. That was not me finding that somewhere. So talk about that for a moment.
What's that? Oh,
yeah. So I didn't make that happen.
So we brought a bear pelt in today. A lot of times people will ask, did you kill the bear? And no, I did not kill the bear. But sometimes if something happens where a bear dies naturally, or if unfortunately if it was hit by a car, sometimes people in the park can get what's left of the bear and preserve the skin so that we can use it as a teaching tool for people. So we still have the skin today so that we can let people get up close and personal with a bear in a safe manner and teach them about bears so that they don't try to approach them in the wild.
Because I would never go up and kiss a bear, because the rule of thumb, everyone do this right now, put your thumbs out, and whatever you're looking at, if you can hide it behind your thumb, it's usually far enough. So right now, if I wanted to take off my husband's hat, I can't see him, so I probably am far enough away that he is safe of me taking off his hat right now. So don't forget, in your journal, write that, the rule of thumb. All right, any more questions?
How long do pika live?
Ooh.
How long do pika live? I don't have an exact number. Points for Stump the Ranger.
Another Stump the Ranger.
Right.
Rocky Mountain may win the Stump the Ranger program. You never know.
I think we're there. What about talking about different species of animals? What is the oldest animal there? Or maybe they said the earliest, so maybe like creatures that have been around for many, 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 many years.
So what is the oldest animal that you have here?
The oldest animal that we have here, I generally think that our larger animals are going to be living a lot longer. So our big moose and our elk are going to be around a lot longer than something like a marmot and a pika. So I'm going to say our big elk, the ones that have these giant antlers, is a sign that they've been around for a while. So some of our oldest animals that you're most likely to see are going to be those great big elk.
So speaking of moose, we were here just a couple of days ago and we had several moose out in the water. A mother and her daughter, I think it was a daughter because she had pink in her hair, and they were out in the water, and we were hoping today that they would show up, and they might, but I do want to show you a picture of the moose that was here just the other day. Now, they were walking across this water that was just a couple of inches deep. However, we did find out from Ranger Kurt, that it gets to be about 30 feet deep in some of these areas. Now, we also noticed some humans that weren't doing some very safe behaviors.
Mhm.
So they were getting very close. We took this with a zoom lens, but they were getting close and they actually got between the mother and the daughter. And that didn't sit well with the moose. So the moose, I would say, kind of charged towards them, but she wasn't trying to be mean. She was protecting her babies. So they walked all the way across and we got to see them. Hang tight though, kids. We still have 10 more minutes. We could have something. Now, I bet you've noticed a bunch of birds and ducks around here. We have mallard ducks in the
Mhm.
water, correct?
We do.
And we also have goose
Mhm.
or geese.
Mhm.
In fact, over where you can't see right now, we have a mother goose that is nesting. She has her eggs in there, and we're hoping to have some babies, our little goslings,
Yes.
very soon. More questions, Miss Zimmerman.
How frequent are bear attacks?
How frequent are bear attacks? Luckily, here at Rocky Mountain National Park, not frequent. There aren't a lot of bears here to begin with. It's very, very special to get to see one. And I'd like to think that we've done a good job making sure our visitors know how to be a good neighbor to bears. So during my time here, there have been zero.
Zero. And again, I do think that's because of the humans that are learning not to do this. Now, here we just have black bears.
Correct.
But in some of our other national parks, we have grizzly bears. So up in the Grand Teton, up in Yellowstone, we have the grizzly bear, which is denoted by that hump on their back. And in Alaska, we also have some brown bear. So I would say all bear are dangerous, and we just have to be bear aware, I think is the saying around here.
What about, do you have ferrets, wolves, moose? What other kinds of surprising animals might we find in Rocky Mountain?
Yeah, so something like a ferret, a lot of times people will come in and visitors will say, I saw this ferret, it was so cool. And what they might have seen was our weasel. We have a long-tailed weasel, and something that's cool about them is just like the snowshoe hare changes coats through the season, the weasel does as well. So when you see the little weasel picture kind of like a ferret, if you have a friend who has a ferret, and I was surprised to learn my first season here that they're carnivores. So they actually will go under the snow and they'll be looking for mice and squirrels and different things. And if they can get a hold of them, our weasels are actually carnivores and will eat mice and things they find under the snow.
And I do know that we're going to run out of time here, but I do know they're reintroducing wolves into
Yes.
this area.
Yeah.
We know that there's a moose here. There's also beaver. So there's an area around here called Fisherman's Nook, and the beavers have just had babies over there. So
Yeah.
they're swimming around, lots of birds. There is a bird here called the red-tailed hawk. Is that correct? That is a beautiful bird to watch, and we've been watching birds fly all over us. Nothing has pooped on us, which is really exciting. I'm glad about that. You know, Miss Zimmerman and Miss Schwanekamp and Miss Brown, I think that you're seeing over the last year during Crossing America, our students are more and more interested in the world around them. They want to know more. So these questions today have been fabulous. What I'm going to ask you to do is curate those questions for us, and we will give them homework and have them answer those, and then we'll put this out on an email. You know, I want to thank you so much for spending your time here with us today. I mean, I know it's been really hard to do because the weather is really nice and there's a beautiful mountain behind us, but it's a beautiful place and we thank you. But you know, a lot of things go on behind the scenes that you never see. So I want to thank so much to Steve and Dave who are running all the machines back there to make this work. And for this event, we have two educators who have traveled from Kentucky and Wyoming. They've been back here running the props around. You've probably seen a pink hand go up every once in a while. So this is Miss Rupsh and she is a teacher in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And this is Miss Bale, who is a teacher in Wheatland, Wyoming. So thank you so much for being here today with us. So we're going to get a little closer. We want to thank the National Park Foundation for all of their amazing work. We have one more live stream for this school year. And boys and girls, we're going to be in Glacier National Park up in Montana. So you may see some of the same backgrounds, but our goal there is to find a grizzly. So if you're excited about that, I know the people behind the scenes are excited about that. A special thanks to the National Park Foundation, to Expeditions in Education, to the National Parks in general, and to everyone that shows up for these things. So on behalf of all of them, we want to say thank you for coming. Thank you to our moderators. Thank you to our teachers who are constantly showing up. But most importantly, thank you, students, for caring enough about our national parks to make a difference. So I'm going to do something we usually don't do. I'm going to ask you to unmute your microphones, and on count of 3, we're going to yell out, "We love national parks." So get those microphones unmuted. 1, 2, 3.
We love
We love national parks.
Yes, thank you so much and have a great day, everyone. Bye.
There was a hawk.
I
Get
saw
a
that.
fish.
Osprey.
Ah.
He was white, a lot of white.
Bye, Leanne. Bye, Robin. Bye, Carissa. Thanks so much. We love you guys.
Bye, guys. Have a great rest of your day.